Hello, my name is Louise and we are here for Year 2 Phonics, Lesson 50. Can you believe that? Amazing. Let's jump straight in. It is weekly review today. So let's go back and review what graphemes were introduced at the beginning of the week. Now, it was phoneme N. Repeat, N. Great. So we learned this one right back in reception. Grapheme N. Now we have learned about those silent letters that were brought in through languages over time. We know that we used to pronounce the very first letter, but we don't anymore. So, new grapheme for N, K-N, N. Repeat. Excellent. We also have one more. G-N, N. Repeat. Great. So our lesson today will have all three of these graphemes to represent the phoneme N. Also, we have our morpheme this week, which is a prefix. It was miss. Repeat. Miss. And miss means wrong or bad. Repeat. Great. Time for our dictation. So while I'm resetting my board, I would like you to get ready with something to write on and something to write with. Can be pencil or paper, can be a whiteboard, you choose. First, with our dictation, I need you to listen to the complete sentence first. Then I'll repeat it and you'll repeat it orally and I'm listening for you at home. Then what we'll do, step 3, is I will scoop the phrases and you will write the phrases. When I go like this, I need you to pause the video to give yourself enough time to write it down. Got it? Okay, here is our dictation sentence for today. The forgetful gnome misplaced his knitting needle. I'll say it again. The forgetful gnome misplaced his knitting needle. You repeat now with me. The forgetful gnome misplaced his knitting needle. Okay, pick up your pen, pencil. Time for you to write. The forgetful. Gnome misplaced. His knitting needle. Okay, I'm going to say the sentence one more time. I want you to look down onto your page. Make sure you have all of the words. Check your punctuation as well, those capital letters and full stops. So the sentence is, follow along, track with your finger. The forgetful gnome misplaced his knitting needle. Okay, do you need to make any changes? I'm going to put the sentence now up on the board for us to check our work. Here we go. So, reading along, the forgetful gnome misplaced his knitting needle. How did you go with the word forgetful? 3 syllables there. Excellent. Gnome. It was our anchor word this week. Did you have the right graphemes for that silent G-N, N in gnome? Misplaced. What's the tricky part in there? Miss is our prefix. How'd you go with that? The tricky part here, of course, is that soft C. Remember, we learn it as S. Let's break that word down. M-I-S-P-L-A-S-D. Okay, so we have our soft C spelling. Then it's even trickier because we need to add on that ed suffix. So we kind of drop an E and add that vowel suffix. His knitting needle. Now the tricky part here, of course, is that doubling rule. Our base word is knit. one syllable word, one short vowel followed by one consonant. So we need to double the T and add ing. And needle. Terrific. Give yourself an amazing tick. It's less than 50, so go crazy. Give yourself lots of ticks. Make it stand out for you. Well done. I'm going to reset my board and we're going to come back for our reading together. Okay, we're here for our passage reading together. Remembering you are going to see lots of those graphemes that we have been practicing this week, G and K N, and just sometimes N on its own, representing that phoneme N. Can you pick out some words also that contain that prefix miss, meaning wrong or bad? Okay, it's a narrative today. It's about a knight. Remember we had a picture of a knight earlier in the week? So it's about a knight, and there's a word this week which we haven't learned before. The word is stealthily. Stealthily. Can you repeat that word? Okay, that word means to act in a cautious way so that you're not seen or heard. So understanding what that word means is really important to the story unfolding today. Stealthily. Okay, first I am now going to read the passage to you, and as I'm reading, remember you're creating pictures in your mind. It's called that mental model. I want you to think of all the images that the words make appear in your imagination. Got it? All right, listening first. Then we'll do echo. Ready? The beast's deep growl could be heard for miles throughout the forest as it gnashed and gnarled, throwing its head from side to side. The dreadful beast opened its filthy mouth wide to expose the needle-sharp teeth inside. Hidden behind a gnarled tree, a knight silently knelt, gnawing on his fingernails. He knew at any moment the beast might detect his presence. He could not believe his misfortune. Why did he have to run into a beast today of all days when he had misplaced his knife? He had no way of defending himself against such a scary sounding beast. The knight had to risk sneaking a peek from behind the tree to observe the beast and plan his attack. He stealthily slid his head around the tree. Imagine his complete surprise when all he saw was a tiny gnome, only the size of a gnat. Did you predict that twist coming? I didn't. Okay, how did you go with building that mental model, all of those pictures in your brain? There are lots of the vocab words that we have looked at earlier in the week. Remember these words, gnashed and gnarled. They are action movements of opening and closing and snapping your teeth together. And gnarled is when you twist it and distort. So the beast was gnashed and gnarled. Oh, so that didn't make sense. The beast gnashed and gnarled, and we know it's talking about its teeth, and throwing its head from side to side. So that creates an incredible picture in your brain. I wonder what colour your beast is. Has it got one or two heads perhaps? It can be anything you imagine at this point from what the words prompt us to think. Okay, there's also a part in this story where it uses a couple of author choices about phrases that it uses. So the first one is, could be heard for miles. This is the word miles. Now, in Australia, we don't use miles, we use kilometres. But in storybook language, heard for miles throughout the forest, it's a lyrical phrase. So we use that storybook language there. Also, down here, there's this part here, silently knelt, gnawing on his fingernails. Can you do that? Gnaw on your fingernails. What does it usually mean? It means you're usually terrified and scared. This poor knight here is hearing all of these crazy sounds. He's imagining the beast. He hasn't seen the beast yet, because that's the twist down here, isn't it? He hasn't seen that beast yet. So he's scared, gnawing on those fingernails. It's another author's choice to create that really, really strong picture in your brain. Then the twist. Here it is down here. He summons all of his courage and he sneaks a peek. He's moving stealthily, so not to be seen or heard. And he peeks around that tree to see what's there. Complete surprise. What a shock. All he saw was a tiny gnome the size of a gnat. Do you remember the gnat? The gnat, it's smaller than my fingernail. It's only like a tiny flying insect the size of a mosquito. Did he need to be scared after all? Probably not. Okay, it is now time for us to do our echo reading today. You know that I am listening for your beautiful phrasing and you are using that beautiful expression in your voice. So you ready? Let's do it together. Ready to echo. The beast's deep growl could be heard for miles throughout the forest as it gnashed and gnarled, throwing its head from side to side. The dreadful beast, did you drop your voice? The dreadful beast opened its filthy mouth wide to expose the needle-sharp teeth inside. Hidden behind a gnarled tree, a knight silently knelt, gnawing on his fingernails. He knew at any moment. Put that suspense in your voice. I need to hear it. The story's building. You need to create that suspense with your voice. Let's do that part again. He knew at any moment the beast might detect his presence. He could not believe his misfortune. Why did he have to run into a beast today of all days when he had misplaced his knife? He had no way of defending. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that one because the himself needs to actually be near the defending in the same scoop. Let's do that again. He had no way of defending himself against such a scary sounding beast. Great. It's really good to scoop some phrases and correct your mistakes sometimes because that's where the meaning is all grouped. So I'm glad we corrected here because the meaning is with defending himself. All right, last paragraph, echo, lots of expression, let's go. The knight had to risk sneaking a peek from behind the tree to observe the beast and plan his attack. he stealthily slid his head around the tree. Imagine his complete surprise when all he saw was a tiny gnome, only the size of a gnat. Excellent. Thank you for echoing with me. Now, close your eyes for a second and think about all of those images. Where are they? They're in a forest. You know that there's lots of trees around. You know that at the beginning of the story, he's thinking about this dreadful beast, gnashing and gnarling. They're all to do with teeth. And the story tells us that these teeth are needle sharp. Have you got a picture in your mind of that beast in this first part of the story? Okay, we've come up to the part where it's your turn to read the passage a couple of times out aloud using all of that expression, decoding some of those multisyllabic words and practicing for fluency. So I'd like you to pause the video now, read the passage 2 or 3 times. Okay, so before that independent task, let's just review our learning from this week. So we had 3 graphemes now. We have 3 graphemes now for the phoneme N. We have N, we have KN, N, GN, N. Terrific. And we have our prefix miss, meaning wrong or bad. Time for your independent task today. So it's just like what we did together when we created that mental picture. What you're going to do is this is a piece of text and you are going to illustrate your mental model. You need to draw the beast based on this description at the beginning of our narrative. And then on the other half of your page, you need to now reassess your mental image. And using this piece of text, imagine his complete surprise when all he saw was a tiny gnome, only the size of a gnat. Now you need to illustrate the second mental image you have of the beast. They're going to be quite different, aren't they? Thanks for joining in with me today. What a brilliant story. I loved all of that imagery. I'll see you next time.